it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. This beautiful, colorful quilt is called Blooming Butterflies. Now, if you've been to the Shabby Fabrics website, no doubt you've seen this quilt in the past. We've had so many requests to make it again, and we've done that. And this time with even some more exciting fabrics. And of course, we know you love to have all of your applique shapes prefused and laser cut, so those are absolutely done for you again. So when you get your kit, the shapes are perfectly cut. They have heat and bond light on the back. You'll simply roll that roll that edge, and that will release, and your shapes are ready to go. Now, as before, your layout diagrams are full size. You have 2 pages. Take those together, and it'll help you be able to lay down your big background piece. This will be underneath, and you'll be able to lay your pieces down. And this time we have selected a beautiful thread set. I just think this is so pretty. I just love looking at it, even if I never even used it. I love it's beautifully packaged. These are 50 weight sulky cottons, and they're beautifully coordinated so that when you are stitching your applique down to the background, you have some really pretty thread to go ahead and do that. Once that step is done, you'll cut your inner borders and frame your quilt, and then it's time to talk about these prairie points. So if that is new to you, I want to just show you how fun and easy it is to make prairie points. So of course your pattern will have the instructions, but let me just briefly go over that with you. You'll grab all of your solid cotton fabric and cut those into 4-inch squares. Before you even cut that fabric, I encourage you to add some sizing to the fabric. We've done that, and it just gives it a nice stiffness so that when you press the fabric, it really holds the crease. And that's exactly what you want for that prairie point, to have a nice stiff point to it so it really holds its shape. So get a good pressing mat, a nice hot iron all the way on the full linen setting. Your squares need to be perfectly cut to 4 inches square, and we'll just start by folding them on the diagonal, precisely on the diagonal, and give a good press. Leave that iron on there until you have a really crisp seam, and we'll fold it again, and you'll continue doing this with all of your shapes. We've given you plenty of fabric, though you'll be able to make more than you need, and I encourage you to go ahead and do that and make them all. And you know, you can see the layout that we chose. If you want a different layout, go ahead and choose your favorite. If there's a color you don't even want to use, you could probably leave it out and have enough, but double check that you have that. So prepare all of your prairie points just like that, and go ahead and set those aside. And you can decide whether you want to have a repeatable pattern, the way we did, or completely random. But go ahead and plan that. So let me just show you kind of a mock portion of the quilt, and I want to show you how to get your prairie points onto your outer border. So here what I've done is just pretend like this is the big main part of the quilt with all the butterflies, tulips, and stems, and everything of course will be stitched down in the pretty 50 weight coordinating thread, and you want to put those inner borders on all the way around the quilt. Go ahead and measure your quilt at that time. Cut your outer borders, your 2 left and right borders first, precisely to those sizes. Once you have that, and again this is just kind of a mock-up, pretending this is a full-size space, this is where we'll start to begin to attach the prairie points. So the first prairie point is, I'm just going to go in the order of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, pink, and some light pink and pink. And I'm just going to start laying those down. Now, the first point will not go all the way to the top of the border, but instead we'll start 1/4 inch down. Why that's important is if you brought that point all the way to the very top, when you sewed that in with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you would actually clip that point. So it's very important that you measure down from the top and leave up from the bottom on all of the borders 1/4 inch and start the prairie point 1/4 inch away from those very top and bottom of each of the borders. Okay, so you have a choice here of having the fold up or the opening up. Now, what I have done when I originally made the quilt many years ago is I had my fold up and my double opening down. What that actually creates is when I get ready to, and I'll actually show it to you. If I lay these in here like this, when I get ready to sew, Of course, you just lay them all out. When you get ready to sew, I naturally turn this around, go to the sewing machine, but you see how these points are here, and I struggle with that. Sometimes as the presser foot comes into that, it wants to roll those back, and I have an example here of one that I was practicing, and sure enough, those points wanted to roll back, and I was really struggling with that. So what I would encourage you to do is actually start with that opening up a quarter of an inch down, and we're just going to start laying our prairie points on, looking for a nice even spacing. And you'll see once we do take that to the sewing machine, I don't have to struggle with those points. They're not going to want to give me any problem because I'll just be sewing right over those, and you're going to see that here momentarily. So just keep laying out your points. Whenever I do prairie points, I kind of just roughly lay them out. I start off with, okay, I'm going to put, 13 prairie points or 15 prairie points or whatever I'm going to do. I gather all of those. I put my first one down, I put my last one down, and I spread them out as evenly as I can. So we'll just spread them out. It takes just a little bit of time to have a nice amount of spacing. I need to scoot that up a quarter of an inch away. And I wouldn't normally have my prairie points this crowded, but because I want to have a nice little array for you to see, you can have your prairie points this close together if you want to. Now I'm going to turn that to the side. I want to clip that, pin that, and baste that before I attach that to the main part of the quilt. I'll be using some mini Wonder Clips and my flower pins because they go through the bulk really nicely. You're probably used to seeing me use these really fine patchwork pins. This is a lot of bulk for those, and they might bend. So for that reason, I want to encourage you to first go ahead and use your Wonder Clips to clip the place where those all kind of join up, and just get that steady. I want less things moving around. Now some people don't pre-baste their prairie points, and they just kind of all sew this together. I think for me, it's a lot of things potentially moving around and maybe shifting when I don't even realize it. So that's why I do think the step of basting down your prairie points to your outer border first with an 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then attaching them to the main part of your quilt is probably a step that, while it's a little bit of additional time, is worth it, because then nothing will shift in the process of trying to sew all of those things together. So I've Wonder Clipped those intersections, and I'm just going to go back with my clover flower pins and just attach that, because as you know, when I approach these areas, I have to remove those clips. Well, I really want something else to help hold them in place. I'm going to move that Wonder Clip. I want that down like that. Prairie points, I remember for years before I made this quilt, I just admired them, and I was like, oh, this is too hard. There's no way I would. Now you can see they're actually very simple and fun to make. So we're going to go to the sewing machine, sewing an 1/8 of an inch seam, and now because of the way we oriented the prairie points, we are not going to be arm wrestling with those points and potentially having them roll on us. So that's why we went ahead and oriented that opening as we did. So let's head over to the sewing machine. If you need to make any adjustments at the machine, now that I'm kind of up close and personal, I can see that one prairie point got off of my edge just a touch. Go ahead and adjust things as you need to. I do love my Wonder Clips and my good pins. You know, in the beginning when I was a young quilter, I was just like, oh, any pins will do. Yeah, but the best pins make the best projects because it's doing its important job. All right, so now you have all of your prairie points basted down. We need to attach those to the main part of our quilt that now has the inner border on there. So we'll go ahead, right sides together. And again, you're just going to pin or wonder clip as you prefer, and we'll sew with a regular 1/4" seam allowance. I'll just pop in some quick wonder clips. What I want to show you on this next step, once we go ahead and get this attached, is how to press the outer border so that those points are nice and pressed and stay to the outside of the quilt, so that when you're hanging your quilt in your house, they're laying nice and flat against that white outer border. So we'll sew now with a regular 1/4" seam allowance. Okay, we'll definitely need to get that iron. I think it's already on its full hot setting. All right, so when you first open up the outer border, those prairie points are going to want to pop straight up. They always do that. That's just natural. So what you'll want to do is heat up that seam, good and hot, and you'll press that back toward that inner border by deliberately, I drag the prairie point so that they're all going this direction. You can probably see that from over there. Make sure they're all going this direction. I give a little bit of a pull, and then I just begin to give a good press. And then look how the prairie points just stay out there. Now, some people tack theirs down. They do a cute decorative stitch. Some people have a button. I just left mine free to be able to be very dimensional. People can touch them. And I think it's just really pretty that they can kind of see that dimension. So be sure to grab your Blooming Butterflies quilt. It's so fun to be able to add such a colorful and joyful quilt to your home. And maybe if you have a friend that loves just colorful things, butterflies, flowers, maybe tag a friend. This might be fun to do together. And be sure to grab that beautiful thread set. So thank you for letting me show you about Blooming Butterflies and how fun and easy it is to make prairie points. I'll see you soon.